We're on page 228. We're starting chapter, letter number 10. And surprise, surprise, the topic is Tzedaka. Most of the letters' topic is Tzedaka. Obviously, each one, the Alter Rebbe comes from another approach, teaching us, and the reason why the sons of the Alter Rebbe selected these letters, because they're extremely central and fundamental to Yiddishkeit. As we saw, each letter, while addresses Tzedaka, is really addressing a very important theme. This one, again, discusses a very central theme to Yiddishkeit, and it's an amazing, beautiful Geschmacka letter, as all of them are, and hopefully we'll get to see it. Achar Drisa Shalom. After words of hello, peace, and the Alter Rebbe in this letter is going to address a very interesting idea, and that is, the theme of this letter really is understanding that there's two types of chesed that Hashem interacts with the world. Yeah, page 228. There are two types of chesed that Hashem, Perek Yud of Iggeres Hakodesh. Yeah. Two types of chesed. One chesed is called chesed Elam. It's a chesed that functions within the world. It's a relatable chesed. There's a relationship to it, how to earn it in a regular way. And that's one type of chesed. Then you have something called chesed ilah. Chesed ilah is a whole other type of chesed. And we're going to discuss, and this takes a whole another way to elicit it, and it has a whole other way of relating to the world. And this is what we're going to get to. But to get that, we're going to have to address two other topics, and then we're going to get to the point. So let's start. Achar drishas shalim v'chayim pasach dvarai. My words should go. Yoir oizen, wake up the ears. Shemas that listens to it. Techeches chayim, critique of life. Asher shchiach Hashem chayim, that Hashem gave critique of life, meaning really good direction. Al yedei neviyai, through his prophets. So the Alter Rebbe, as he always does, he quotes, and I'm not so familiar with these verses, but these are verses from the Torah and the Nevi'im that he always brings as the opening, and he quotes a collection of verses that he merges together to make these beautiful openings, which have a lot of teichen and connection. V'omar, here's what it says: Chaste Hashem kilei samnu v'gemer. The kindness of Hashem, for it never finishes. And right away, we asked this question other times in Tanya, if you remember, and we said when we get to Iggeres Hakodesh Chapter 10, we're going to discuss it properly. Well, here we are. And the question we ask always is, why does it say Kilei Samnu instead of Kilei Sam? What's the difference? Simply speaking, the difference is a lot of stuff. But simply speaking, Samu means it stops. So what does it mean? Chaste Hashem Kilei Sam, with the kindness of Hashem, because it doesn't finish. Meaning Hashem's kindness is endless. It's infinite. Samnu sounds like we don't stop. We don't stop. Chaste Hashem Kilei Samnu. So what does that mean? We have to address that. He says, V'hava le'meimer, seemingly it should have written in the pasuk, Kilei Samu, that it doesn't finish, because we find elsewhere, Kilei Samu chasadecha v'gemer. Like it says, his kindness doesn't ever end. So what is this Samnu? And we're going to discover, I'm not going to tell you the secrets or all the answer, but the simple discussion we're going to say that we're really discussing something else. The word Samu could also have another meaning, complete, like a tam. Like a tamim. And we're saying Kilei Samnu, that we're not complete. When do you see Hashem's kindness? When he takes care of us, even though we're not perfect. Imagine I say to the boss who pays my salary, your kindness is so good that I never showed up for work. In other words, what makes you so kind that I'm imperfect? Meaning the fact that we are lacking is where you see Hashem's kindness, because Lei Samnu, we're not good, we're not perfect. Yet Hashem gives and gives and gives, etc. We'll get to that. But it's just okay.
So why again? Why Tamnu?
Because Samnu, we're not complete. Because we are not complete. Meaning it's not some we're not finished. We're not complete. Meaning we're not perfect. But we're going to go a little further. I'm just giving you a little idea. But we'll get to that. Okay. V'yuvon. Now, to understand this idea, we'll understand this. Is chesed is chesed. We have to go and examine. I mean, to understand this idea of what does it mean, Kilei Samnu, we have to introduce another idea. What's that idea? The Zohar tells us there are two types of chesed in the world. There's a chesed, as I mentioned, which is really the theme of this chapter, of a very regular and worldly nature. And there's a chesed, which is a very above worldly nature. Is chesed, like he says, is chesed elam. There's a chesed that is matching and fitting to the world, chulu. Is chesed ilah, du rav chesed v'chulu. And then you have a higher chesed, which is higher than the world. Okay, he doesn't explain it yet. He's going to tell you we have to understand that. But to understand that, this is like, I have to explain something else first. I tell somebody, I want to explain to you about how a light bulb works. First, I got to introduce electricity. To introduce electricity, I got to introduce what it means energy, meaning I have to go back a couple steps. So to introduce what does it mean, chesed, we have to first introduce something else. And what is that? And now we're getting to the subject itself. Here's the thing. The Alter Rebbe is going to ask. We all know that Mayim is the metaphor for Torah. And somebody wants to say Torah, Mayim. Ain't Mayim el Torah. Torah is like water. It flows from a high place to a low place. It's the original water that was there, comes down here. All the metaphors we give. Another thing we always learned about, Torah is chesed. Torah is chaim yabes chesed. Torah is chesed. Torah is kindness. Torah is good. So he says like this. We have a question. We find elsewhere that Torah or mitzvahs is called gvura. And that's what the Alter is bothered by. We're going to find now 3 places where Torah is referred to as gvura. And this is the question he's asking. We have a problem. What do we know? We find that Torah is called ois, strength. And gevura, which is a lesson of gevura, which is from the left, right? Gevura is the left side, which is strength. Like our sages teach us, Tayag Mitzvahs Nemru Moshe Misinai Piyag Gvura. We see that the Chazal tell us, whenever we talk about Hashem, we could call Hashem many names. Ha-Keil, Ha-Gadol, Ha-Giber, Ha-Neira, right? Many names for Hashem. Hashem sometimes called Gadol. Gadol usually means Chesed. Sometimes we call him Giber, which is Gvura. Why, when it says about Torah, does it use the word Gvura? If Torah is all about Chesed, how do we call Hashem? B'Piyah Gvura from the Gvura. Why can't we say B'Piyah Agadol? We're used to the word Gvura. B'Piyah Gadula. B'Piyah Chesed. Why does Hashem call on this name Gvura? We're talking about Torah. Torah at this point, we have times Hashem is called Gvura. He's sitting on the Kisei Adin, he's sitting on the chair of judgment. There are times Hashem is called Din, when he went against Pari, etc. Why by Torah does it say that Tayag Mitzvahs Nemru Moshe Misinima Piyah Gvura? It should have said the Piyah Gadula or something else. That's another question. That's one point where we see the Torah is called Gevura. Ukedechsiv, another place we see it, and this is the most interesting one. It says, Miminoi Eish Das Lamai. From his right hand comes fire, the teachings of Torah. So, seemingly, it says here the word Eish. Eish, we know, we learned it earlier. Chesed is Mayim. Eish is Gevura. Fire. Fire is not Chesed. Fire is Gevura. So why is it called Gevura? Why is Torah called Eish? But the question is even stronger in the same passage. It contradicts itself. Miyaminai, from his right. What's his right? Mayim. Water.
I thought you said Esh.
Look. Miyaminai Eish. Look what it says in the passage. Miyaminai Eish. From his right comes fire. No, it doesn't. From his right comes water. From his left comes fire. So first of all, why does it mention the fire by Torah? Second of all, if it just said the word Miyaminai from his right hand, right is always chesed. We know hayamin mekareves vasamel deicha. Your right hand brings closer, your left hand pushes away. Your right is chesed, your left is gvura. Your right is mayim, your left is eish. Your right is zov, left is kesef, etc. Why do we have this? Why do we have here not only the word eish for Torah, but we use the word miminai right when it should be left, and we're talking about eish. So you have 3 psukim that show the issue of 3 psukim that show that Torah seems to refer to as gvura or eiz. Hashem eiz lama yitain. We talk about eiz for Torah. We have mipia gvura, and we have eish das lama.
Maybe because Gvura it's stronger, much stronger, and then you have to do it.
Okay, so I'll tell you. You'll see. Rebbe gives a very easy this answer. I don't want to say it's easy, nothing simple, but he gives an answer which is very easy to understand. He's like this.
But you said 2 things: Hashem Ozla Moiten, and the other one.
And then we had Mipi Gvura, from the mouth of Gvura, and Mimini Eish Das Lamai, from his right hand is fire. Torah. Okay, and the question is like this: Torah Mequon Torah. We know the Torah in its source and its origin. Hurak Chaste Hashem. Torah by definition is Chaste Hashem. Torah is Chesed. First of all, the idea Hashem has Torah and gives it to us and shares it with us, that's Chesed. He's pouring it to us. But Torah we know is the whole flow of Hashem's chayis and life and all that. We spoke much earlier in the Tanya, a long time ago. We spoke about that everything in the world, its life force is Torah. How is it when, God forbid, somebody has a problem, they could do a mitzvah and fix a problem? It says, Chosh b'reish yasik b'Torah. Someone has a headache, learn Torah. How does that help? Because everything comes from Torah. Every single thing in the world is Torah. As we know, the famous, I don't know if it's famous, it's probably not famous story, but a beautiful story. The Alter Rebbe in prison, once they discovered the tremendous wisdom and brilliance of the Alter Rebbe, unlike by the Frierdiker Rebbe that disrespected him, the Alter Rebbe, he got tremendous covet. The Tsar himself came to visit him, but there was a minister that came frequently to Gazun to visit him, and he had a lot of questions. And the Alter Rebbe always answered his questions brilliantly. A lot of famous stories, and I'll get back to one of these stories in a few minutes. But I want to get to that story, it's important. But one of the fascinating things is the minister, he not only appreciated, he wanted to share his wisdom with the Alter Rebbe. So at that time, they had just received from America what they called the New World, a map. They got the map of the New World. There was just discoveries in those years, the early, there was 1798 that year. They were having all this, the rest, all the stories. So he brought him a map of the New World. The Alter Rebbe looks at it and says, there's a mistake. It's a small mistake. So he tells the Alter Rebbe, I understand that you're brilliant in science and Torah and mathematics and astronomy, but you were never to the New World. How do you know? The Alter Rebbe smiled. A day or two later, or three, he comes back, excited. They just sent him a map. They said, they're sorry. We had a mistake in the original map we sent you. The correction is here, exactly as Alter Rebbe said. He said, how did you know? So he told him very simply, Hashem, it says, Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. Every single thing that you see in the world, all it is a shadow, a shade, what's happening upstairs. Every single thing in the physical world is just a reflection, it's just an outcome of a Torah. That means life and health and Torah and planets and wind and snow and rain, and everything is Torah. And if you know how to see in Torah properly, you can first of all see everything in the world properly, and secondly, you can see how to fix things. There's a problem in the world. You learn another passage of Torah. As a matter of fact, going back to where it says, if you have a headache, you should learn Torah. The question is, the guy says, I learned Torah, it didn't help. He says, you have to know which part of Torah to learn. It's like you say, I took medicine, it didn't help me. Yeah, you took a medicine for a diabetic, not for a guy with a heart issue. You have to take the right medicine. You have to have the right part of Torah. Okay. So Torah by definition is a flow of chayis, a good of chesed into the world. But more than that, the point of Torah is to infuse into this world Torah and light and holiness. But there's two halves to the story. One half of the story is called the mashpia. The mashpia is giving and transferring light. Then you have that who's mamshechet. Mamshechet, hamshacha, is the other end of the story. I am receiving, I am taking it and drawing it further. You see, a makabel is, a lot of times we use, a makabel is one thing. Here we're talking about something else. A mashpia and a mamshech. A mashpia means I am giving the rain. Now the person who is the farmer, it's not enough to be a makabel. You got to take this rain and make sure the field is a receptacle for it. You can't just say, okay, I'm here. You got to go and do something. So Hashem gave us Torah, which is the mashpia, and mitzvahs, which are the mamshichim, which bring down into this world. So Hashem's job is send, chesed. Our job is take that and infuse it into the world. Take a pair of tefillin, and take a piece of leather, turn it into tefillin. Take bread and do the mitzvah of challah. Take candles, light them. Take a house and put up mezuzah. We take the mashpah and bring it life. So what's this partnership with us and Hashem? Hashem gives chesed, mamshich it into the world. So we look inside, you'll see two halves of the statement here. He says, first, Hashem has first you have that Hashem brings it down into the higher worlds and the lower worlds. And how does that happen? Adam, through the person that comes, he draws down this eir onto himself by doing the 248 mitzvahs, which are the 248 limbs of a king. What is this idea about limbs? So I just want to explain what a limb is. A lot of times a person could say, like, what is a limb of a body technically? Take a finger. What's a finger? It's a piece of. Can I add a finger to my body? Can I glue on something? Can I change it? What's a finger? A finger, an eyeball, an ear. All these are not just limbs, but they're limbs. But what's a limb? A limb is a specially designed vehicle for particular power of the soul. The soul has the power to see. It has a limb that's able to be mamshech this power. That means you couldn't do it with your thumb, even though we learned elsewhere that technically you could with the safe, but the tzaddikim was able to see. A very fascinating story I once learned. But ideally speaking, only your eye has the power to see. Why? Because the eye has the right makeup to receive this koyach from the nefesh and use that to see. The ear has a power to hear. The finger has a power to touch or to draw, etc. In other words, every one of our limbs are really tools, conduits for that power of the soul. Or say it the other way around, the soul is stuck. He has all these resources. He has all these powers, no way to express it. There's no way for the soul to express it. God forbid a person doesn't have their eyes, God forbid, the soul can't express that power to see. If a person is missing the eardrum, whatever it is, can't hear. But the soul needs those things. So really what we have here is the limbs are really vehicles to take that power of the soul and bring it into function. That's why the mitzvahs are called limbs. Hashem as a chayis, he wants to bring into the world. Every single mitzvah is the limb of that which is able to draw down that chayis into the world. Comes out of, it's not just a lot of hair, 248 limbs. No, it's a limb is a particular, it's a conduit, and it's designed. And every single mitzvah is designed particularly to draw down a certain chayis. Well, of an esrog, tefillin, challah. That's why we find mitzvahs and powers and blessings associated with certain mitzvahs. We spoke about what's not draws down. So which means the 248 limbs is actually an amazing metaphor for mitzvahs because those are the ones that draw down that hashpah into the world. So we said a few lines ago that Hashem is mashpia air. He gives air. And we have to do mamshechit. How do we do it? Through those limbs. Because each limb, each mitzvah is designed to bring down a certain chayis into the world. Now we have the answer to our question. Our question was, if a mitzvah is chesed, what do you need gvura? So I'm going to say it outside first, and I'll say it inside. The problem we have is, or I should say the challenge we have is, the resource we're bringing down is way too big for the recipient. Mm-hmm. You want to bring down, you have the electric power coming from the plant, 2 million watts, whatever it is, or whatever number, I don't know how the electricity works, and you want to plug in your computer into that, your computer's going to pop. What do you have to do? You have a transformer outside your house that takes that energy and brings it down to a level, let's say, of 220, whatever it's going to be. And then in your house itself, you have another switchboard that switches down to individual things. And many devices even have another thing that will control before the electricity comes into your laptop to make sure only the right amount's coming in. In other words, without a proper tzimtzum, without gevura, the hashpah could be a fail. So it comes out, so in order to have a success, you have to have a tzimtzum first. We know that famous metaphor of the Meitzah Hagarin, that you have the seichel coming out the middays in your heart. You have the Meitzah Hagarin, and what's that for? It's made sure that the seichel that's coming in, it's not able to go into your middays right away. They're so giant. So you make a Meitzah Hagarin, the neck is narrow, meaning it's able to take the seichel and draw it down to a way that your heart can receive it. Otherwise, your heart can pop from so much intellectual power that's trying to stimulate certain feelings, ideally. But the bottom line is the gevura is needed for this chesed. So it comes out two things to know. Number one, a very famous and essential adin chassidus that the tzimtzum is not about tzimtzum, it's about gili. When you have a contraction, a concealment, the point is not to conceal it. The point is to share. I can only share if I minimize it. If I don't minimize the idea, say for an example, if you want to explain to your 5-year-old student, or an 8-year-old student something about complexity, the only way to tell it to him is make it smaller. So why are you hiding most of the information? Not because it's a secret, because he can't receive the information as it is. You make it small, now I can understand it. So in order for the hamshach of the Eibusher to come down with pnimius, he has to have gvura first. So the truth is, yes, everything in its shurish and everything in its point is chesed nashpa, but it must go through eish or dust, eish or gvura in order to come down in a receivable way. Okay, let's see this inside. So we say like this: the mitzvahs are machivar and the malka, pirish and mach kelim ulevushim lahara, as we said before a few moments ago. So the mitzvahs are really 248 special conduits and vessels for this light from Hashem. And this is a particular light that's shining, or a particular ability that's found within each mitzvah, right? And it gets enclosed in that particular that mitzvah. Each hashpah, each drawing down of light and energy and godliness that gets enclosed in a particular mitzvah. And he says, by the way, in parentheses, it says parenthetically, but it's a very important line. And this is how you have the right. The stands for the right ava and yira. How does someone have the right ava and yira in a mitzvah? How do you know how do you have that feeling when you're searching for the chametz? You should have the right feeling as you should, not just a fun activity searching for chametz. It's because every mitzvah has within it a light, and that light is what makes you have the feeling. If you know how to learn about it, connect to it, understand it, and meditate. So in other words, every single light that's there is not just that it's going to transform the challah from being this piece of dough bread that could have been bread in the in a bakery somewhere, but it becomes holy challah for Shabbos, or not for Shabbos even, for during the week, but it has a mitzvah of challah. That's because it has the power in it, but also you could have the feeling when you do it. Not just that you're doing it without feeling. You could suddenly do the mitzvah of Hafashas challah and feel different. You could feel a little more holy. You could feel a little more connected to Hashem. Why? Because within that mitzvah and chayis that's there, it's not just to infuse the physical bread and the physical matter. It's also to infuse the person doing the mitzvah. That's in the parentheses. Okay. But as you started saying, that can't happen because you'll explode. But what we see, one of two things will happen. If we don't have this filter of tzimtzum, of gevura, one of two things will happen. Either I'll listen to Einstein's share and have no idea what he's talking about, or if it's something which is a revelation of too much, I can't handle, I'll pop. Meaning, either it's like Medal of Futafas once told somebody, and they actually put it in the book they made about him on the back of the book, with the introduction to the book. It's a scary, sad line, but it's powerful. He says, if I shared with you everything that happened to me in prison, either you won't believe me, or you won't sleep at night. Either you won't believe it, or if you do believe it, you won't sleep at night. In other words, there's information that's either not going to get into our heads because it's too much for us, or if it gets in, it's gonna be dangerous.
That's what happened now in Israel. So many people have post-trauma.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, it's things the mind can't handle. Right, exactly. Unfortunately, that's in the negative. You have some of that positive information you can't handle. A person hears news and they.
Mendel Futafas wasn't talking about positive.
You're talking about Mendel Futafas. Yeah, yes. Sorry. Yeah, Baruch Hashem, most of us, myself included, do not know much of what happened in the horrible times there, because after the class I'll tell you one thing just interesting, but not for now. Okay. But getting back to our point, it's just that in order for this light to come down to this world, in order for this hamshacha, that we down here in this world, remember Hashem is mashpia, and we're being a mamshech. Now our job is to take that and infuse it, engage it, live with it, be transform the world. In order for us to do it successfully, you have to have Gemara first. Otherwise, we're dealing with something which is either electricity that's going to pop the laptop, or it's not going to work. It's not going to get it. So that's what he says. This hamshach has to first be enclosed, engaged, and dressed in Hashem's gevur, which is symptom, contraction, concealment. Which is one of the nicknames, is called Eish. That is the idea of concealing, blocking, holding off, meaning covering a large percentage of the light. Not that we're blocking everything, we get nothing. No, we'll get plenty, trust me. The electricity coming through powers of refrigerators, vacuum cleaners, air conditioners, and everything. But only because we have a transformer outside our house. If not for that big, round, tall box, we'd be in big trouble. And that's what makes it successful. So this answers our questions. One of the questions we had was, if Torah is chesed, if Torah is all about hamshacha, why is it called gvura? And the answer is that it has to go through gvura to get to this point, which means, and this is important for later in the chapter, that what are we getting really? A very small amount. What we're actually getting, so take Einstein for an example. When he has this brilliant idea that he wants to share, and he's going to share with a high school student, and they have to dumb it down, the high school student might say, not so impressive. Well, the truth is, it's impressive. And second of all, you're only getting a tiny bit of it. Because in order for you to understand it, I had to take out all the complexities.
It's not the same like sun and the rays of sun.
It's very similar, very similar. The sun is 83 million miles away. What comes down here and through all the ways Hashem made ozone layers and stuff that protect, we get. If we got the strength of the sun, the way it is, by the sun itself, if we were just a mile from the sun, it would be very crunchy. Just to understand it in the famous joke that is given, about this poor man in the shtetl that always watched the rich people, and they always had yummy cheese blintzes. And he always wanted a cheese blintz. It looked so yummy, so they watched him eat it. And finally, his wife says, "Get me the list of the ingredients. I'll get me the recipe. I'll make it for you." He gets her the ingredients, the whole list of the recipe. She looks at the first thing, white flour. Okay, wouldn't have white flour. We'll use regular flour, black flour, those days, unrefined. I wouldn't have sugar. Okay, we'll skip sugar. I wouldn't have cheese. Okay, we'll put instead some carrots. And basically every single item gets changed. And finally, she makes the blintz. He sits down to eat it, all excited. He bites into it. He spits it out. He says, "You know what? Rich people are crazy." Sometimes a person sees a certain aspect of Yiddishkeit, a certain aspect of godliness, and you're missing the point. Now, in this case, it's not the best metaphor, because why not? Because by Torah, we have today is unchanged. It's just less. There's different types of tzimtzum. So you're still getting, we know what the water comes down. One of the reasons why mayim is used, not the light of the sun, we're talking about Torah itself, is because the same exact water that's on top of the mountain comes down to the bottom of the mountain. It's the same exact water. It just came down. So that's why we say Torah is called mayim, because the Alter Rebbe says earlier, it doesn't get changed. But the bottom line is, what we're getting at the end is a really dumbed down version, so to speak. That's very important for later in the class to understand the two different cheseds. Okay, but the bottom line is, so why do we have gvura? In order we can receive, let's see the next few words here. Kedei shetuchel lehislabesh b'maaseh hamitzvos. The reason why we have to have this concealment, this gevura, this blocking of most of the energy, is in order this fire, this light, this energy, this chayis, this kedusha, this spirituality, this godliness should come down into the mitzvah, and not just become down to his slavish, to be enclosed, to be engaged, to become one. Because most of the mitzvahs, most of the mitzvahs actually have physical matter. Ketzitzis, like tzitzis is made from wool. Tefillin, made particularly from the leather of an animal. Karbonis is animals. Tzedokah is actually charity or food. Now, you might say, 1 second, but there are mitzvahs that are just spiritual. Loving Hashem, fearing Hashem, believing in Hashem. There's no physical part to that. No, then he says, you might say, 1 second, how about those mitzvahs that are just spiritual, don't have a physical thing to attach it to? There's no bread, no leather, no tefillah, no esrog, like Amunah or Yira or Ava. Even those mitzvahs, you still have to have a filter. Why not? Because if we had unfiltered godliness coming to that mitzvah, we'd pop. And we have a very famous case. Very famous case is the story of the Yidden by Har Sinai. Hashem said, "Let me give you guys a little unfiltered stuff," and they died. Hashem brought it back, died again. And there are many stories. So you see, even spiritual stuff, no one had to enclose it, you can't handle it. The story I want to share with you is going back to the Alter Rebbe for a minute. When he was in prison, there's a very famous story everyone knows. But a lot of people don't know the second half of the story. The famous story everyone knows is that when he was in prison, this minister came to him and said, "I want to ask you a question on the Chumash." What's the question? How come after Adam and Chava sinned, Hashem said, "Ayeka"? Doesn't Hashem know who you are? And he gives him an answer. He says, he gives him Rashi's answer. And he says, Hashem wanted to make conversation, sort of break the ice. So sometimes, you get into a car, you meet somebody, so how's the weather outside? You want to... He says, I saw Rashi's answer. I want to hear a deeper answer. That's what the guy says. So Alter Rebbe tells him, do you believe Torah is eternal? He says, yeah. He says, the Torah is asking every single person in the world, Ayeka, where are you? And he says the age and the exact age of this minister. He says, when you're 53 years old and 6 months and 2 days, whatever the correct one he said was. And the minister was impressed. They knew his age. And he said, Hashem asks you, where are you? What are you doing with the life that I gave you? I put you on this earth. What are you doing? Where are you? And he was very impressed and loved the answer. That's the story everyone knows. The story that people don't know is when Alter Rebbe came out of jail, he said that story saved his life. Why? Because he was in jail, the spiritual experience of having this mysterious nefesh and the spiritual level that he was experiencing at that time, he almost passed away. He almost had klei nefesh. He was in such a spiritual state being in prison, but when he told this person Ayeka as being an authentic Rebbe, he asked himself the same question. Ayeka, where are you? You haven't klei nefesh. You're going to let yourself pass away. You have a job to do in this world. He said Ayeka saved his life. In other words, there's a possibility that a person could expire from too much inspiration. And he got it back. The same story with the bagel, with the butter. That's with the malach. That's a much earlier story in his life with the malach, the son of the Maggid. Okay. So here he says like this, that also mitzvahs that are spiritual in nature, don't have a physical part, also have to be limited to avoid the danger of klei nefesh. Let's see this inside. those also have to be with a limitation. Not to be in a just infinite way. Why? If someone has love to Hashem without a limit, without a border, without a measurement, a person cannot live and meaning experience this in your heart and still live. Even for a moment, if you experience real, none of us have to worry about that. Baruch Hashem, I have good news for you. I can't speak for you. I don't have to worry about that. I don't think I'll have the problem of thinking too spiritual. My problem is getting too excited about some other foods. But some people in the back of the day, especially, were really holy, like Nadav and Avihu and other people that came to this high level. Ukamayim Razal, a sages tell us, Shebeshas Matan Torah, at the time of Matan Torah, Shehoisa his galus elikusay his baruch. He had a tremendous revelation of godliness in the world, which is unfiltered godliness. The Ein Sev Baruch Hu, and the revelation of God's infinite light. B'chinas dibur. We know with dibur, we say Hashem created the world by speech. What does speech mean? Doesn't mean Hashem said, "Let there be light." He might have, but what dibur means, expression, revelation. I have right now, so I'm not sharing a feeling or an idea. And when I speak, I'm sharing that which is in me. Dibur represents Hashem sharing something that's deep within inside himself. That's why our dibur does the same thing. So it's dibur, Hashem spoke, as far as the dibres, Visgalus, and the revelation that was there. What happened? Parcha neshmas, and they all passed away. And Hashem had to bring the Talchi, as it says, Hashem brought Chulu. Hashem had to bring this light, this dew that was going to be used in Chiyas HaMesim to revive all their dead. Hashem used to bring them back to life. So what do you see? That not only physical mitzvahs need to be receiving a limited light so they can actually remain physical and be holy challah instead of becoming spiritual concepts. Also, spiritual mitzvahs that are just in our minds and our hearts and our feelings also have to be with the simsim. So the first question we answer is really the last question we asked. That's how we work backwards, going back to the beginning. So what is the answer? Why is Torah referred to as Gevurah? Because yes, Torah is all about chesed. But the purpose of this Gevurah is to have successful chesed. No different than the purpose of a good teacher who truly loves his students. When he's acting strict, it's not to be strict. He cares about the kids, he wants them to learn. I'm not talking about a frustrated teacher who's doing a job and he's annoyed. A real teacher who loves his students. And he's going to say, guys, I'm telling you, if you don't sit and learn, why are you doing that? I thought you loved them. I do. I want them to learn. So the purpose of a strictness a lot of times can be the end game is kindness. And with this, we conclude the beginning of chapter 10, is letter 10. As we see, it's a very central letter, even though it talks about tzedakah, which I haven't mentioned yet, very central in Yiddishkeit. Okay, we'll stop here. Ask Hashem to bless all of us with good news. Pesach is coming, and we should have a healthy, happy, joyous, good, blessed Pesach.